Okay, y'all, I am excited about today's guest. He is an absolute joy, bringing light, love, and hilarious humor beyond belief to this earthly realm. He's a YouTube superstar and has been listed as one of the 100 most spiritually influential living people in the world in 2020 by Watkins Magazine. He's the author of best-selling books, Whatever Arises, Love That, Everything is Here to Help You, and his most recent brilliant work, The Universe Always Has a Plan. Do you guys know who this is? Have you guessed who this is yet? Because today we have Matt Kahn in the house, and it's a freaking party. And if you don't know who Matt is, I cannot wait to introduce you to him. He is a spiritual teacher and highly attuned empathic healer who has become an internet sensation with his transformational and often hilarious videos. His YouTube channel has drawn over 17 million views, helping viewers find the support they seek to feel more loved, awakened, and open to life's greatest possibilities. He also just so happens to have been a wonderful client of ours at the Resonate with Sarah Ads Agency. And Matt, you are the bomb. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thanks for having me. That's so sweet. That was quite an introduction.
I had to pull out all my best for you.
It's it's funny is when I get interviewed and I hear these things repeated back to me, 17 million views, and I remember starting with like an audience of 3 in my house. And then the one of the 100 most spiritually influential people on the planet. Every time I hear these things, I always have this subtle feeling of, am I dying? Is this it?
It's a surreal world in so many ways, man.
So much so.
Yeah. But I'm grateful that you have risen to be one of the 100 most spiritually influential people.
Thank you.
Because it's because of that I found you so many years ago. So super grateful that the collective consciousness bubbled you up.
Thank you. Well, it's an honor. And really, honestly, it really, for me, it's a gratifying thing because when I was starting this work, I was just praying I would love one day to just have an audience and a way of everything I channel. I just want to be able to get it out to the world as soon as possible and just bring God's will to the planet. And now I'm in this surreal reality of living that. And what a great and relieving opportunity it is to know that everything that is just pouring through me, I can just get out for the, for the well-being and transformation of others. It's truly, truly an honor to serve in this way.
Yeah, I've read your book, so I know your story. But for those that maybe read them and don't remember or haven't read them yet, when did all this start for you? When did you start channeling, consciously anyway, where you were like, oh my God, I think I know what's happening?
Well, I've been channeling my whole life. I had an early experience when I was 8. I had an out-of-body experience, but and things would jump out of my mouth, and people would react, laugh, or whatever, and then I would go like, "What did I say?" I wouldn't remember what I would say. So when I was about like 18 years old or 20-something years old, somewhere between 18 and 20-something, I started to have dialogues with the universe, and I would meet different archangels and ascended masters, and each one had this very loving frequency and would teach me about the laws of the universe. And it was my way of kind of attuning to my psychic abilities. And shortly thereafter, there would be these moments where I'd be like in a very public place, like a grocery store. And they would say, go to this person and tell them this message. And there was this feeling in my body that if I didn't, my heart was going to explode out of my chest. So I went up to this person, in the produce aisle, and I said, look, here we are standing by oranges. And you don't know me, but I got to tell you this. And you can run away from me, but let me just tell you, blah, blah, blah. Your grandmother's telling me to tell you, blah, blah, blah. They burst into tears, and oh my God, I lost my grandmother, and that just healed me. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just know that if I did it, I felt relief, and if I didn't, I felt like I was going to die. So that got me in this process of just delivering messages. And then I was guided to go to a spiritual bookstore and, tell them, hey, why do I see purple energy around me? And they had me take the psychic development course. And 3 weeks into the course, they asked me to teach it. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. So it's been a very mysterious journey where I've just followed the guidance within me. And through every healing session I've done or every event I've done, I've watched myself And by watching myself while I do it, I've learned the process of what I do. So it's kind of like my own process educated me, and everything people taught me about other spiritual paths is the only way I've learned about anything else. So it's a very interesting, mysterious journey I've been on.
Wow. Incredible. And what an impact you've made.
Thank you.
So what is your desired impact you want to make over the next 5 years? But honestly, that 5 years is such a long time in this day and age right now. You can tell me what impact you want to make in the next 5 weeks, and it could be similar. So just
I know, right? The way things are going, why not?
What is time? I don't know. What impact?
What is time? I think next 5 years, I think it's time to put my face on candles. I think, I think an incense line. I think in the next 5 years, I'm going to write a couple more books for sure. I definitely want to make sure I do some cookbooks. I want to do some cooking videos, just because I want to bring my artist side out equal to my light worker side, because there's an artist in me, there's a light worker side. But I do want to write a fair amount of books in the next 5 years, at least one a year. That's what I like to do, is one book a year, usually. But as far as my impact on the world, or as far as the impact the vibration of love has on the world, because for me, what I work for is the vibration of love. I would love to see the world resonate with love in a way where we all start to come together and assemble based on our common similarities and what we agree upon. And I'd like to see the world start to be a community-based consciousness where we all start to decide, this is what we resonate with, this is what we will allow, and this is what we won't allow. And I would love over the next 5 years to see the world become the ones in charge of dictating to public officials what we will and won't accept, versus the world kind of just trying to fit itself into whatever storyline is playing out. I'd love to see the world start to take its power back and start to operate from a place of unity and peaceful assembly. I would love to start seeing that, because on this planet, we have a bunch of light workers and people that are waking up individually. And we are all here because we want to see this individual consciousness take shape and form on a collective level. So over the next 5 years, I would like to start to see the shift from individual expansion to communal and collective expansion occur in a very peaceful, loving, and deliberate manner.
I mean, obviously you wrote that script before I asked you the question, because
apparently
that was badass.
Thank you.
No, I long for that too, man. Yeah, as much as we can create community, and it's almost like a sense of a tribe. I don't want to co-opt that word, but
no, of course.
Yeah. So yeah, I love that vision.
Well, and to add to that really quick, I know you're a parent. I'm not personally a parent, although I was a child for many years in a row, consecutively. My undefeated streak as a child.
And part of you still is. I can feel it.
Part of me is still a child. I am one of the 100 most spiritual influential people in the world, and I will sit at the kids' table any day of the week. Not a problem. But what I think is interesting is, I think as kind of like when you're a parent with a child and your child does something almost just to get attention or no, because it gets a rise out of the adult. And there's a point where the adult just peacefully looks at the child and says, honey, we don't do that anymore. I would love in the next 5 years for, instead of the world thinking we have to oppose and overcome the things that are of injustice and negativity and discrimination. And I would love for the world to just assemble and just basically say to these kind of old tendencies, honey, we don't do that anymore. That just doesn't work. We don't do that anymore. And so I think that's going to be the shift that we really experience. People envision we have to expose and overcome and transcend. But really, it's us coming together and just saying, here's what we stand for, and anything that doesn't match that vibration, we don't do that anymore. And I think that's where we find our greatest power. Some people will look at that as being really passive, but it's only passive when people are unaware of the power magnitude of energy that we manifest from that peaceful standpoint.
I love that. My son, my 5-year-old son, last week was unkind to a fellow kid. And so I had a talk with him, and I said, I am the mother of a kind and generous and loving child. And I will continue to be the mother of a kind
Yeah.
and generous and loving child.
Yeah.
When it was a command. And I think he got it.
Yeah.
So that's what I think, that's sort of what you're speaking to, is it's a command from a place of self-responsibility and care, and no accusations and no shaming.
Yeah, because, if we look at unconsciousness, and unconsciousness is a very antagonistic energy. It's antagonistic because it's so afraid of returning to the light, which it sees as such an opposition, that it's constantly pushing and prodding. And it's kind of like the only game unconsciousness has is to say, here's the power I think I have over you. Don't you want to wrestle me for it? Instead of being the wiser, conscious parent that says, yeah, honey, we don't do that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then the unconsciousness that think it has power opens up its hand and see there's nothing really there. So then unconsciousness is becoming fully present of its own illusory perspective and false level of power. And so really unconsciousness unravels itself. We just have to hold the light and choose to allow that revelation to occur by not getting sucked into the antagonism of this conflict of separation. And that takes a lot of maturity, which is why we are all evolving on a spiritual level to be able to be the parents that don't get baited and sucked into the the attention-seeking devices of a rather immature energy.
Mm. There's so much there that I and my listeners will need to listen to that again. That was good stuff.
Thank you.
So you have achieved so much success. When we started working together, you had never run ads or anything like that. And you achieved so much success organically. And I'm wondering, how did you manage to do that without investing in advertising?
It's a very interesting story because, before, when I started working with you, it was the first time we had ever explored the opportunity of advertising. And for me, the intention of advertising was just to get these messages and energies to more people who could benefit from them. But up until that point, when I started doing talks, my first talk was in my living room with 4 people. And I think like 2 of them were there just for the potluck afterwards. I'm thoroughly convinced of that. And it grew and grew, and bookstores at that point and, know who I was. And it's kind of a weird thing when, you come into an industry and you're like, and someone tells you like, well, you're not anyone yet. So we can't acknowledge you, and I thought I'd come into this field and talk at bookstores and help people. And, it was a really strange experience when I followed my guidance. I went to where I was supposed to be, and like, nothing happened. And so, at that time, my business partner and I decided, let's just take videos of my talks and put them on YouTube. And so once a month, we would just put a video on YouTube and load it up, and I'd put my quotes on Facebook. And I wouldn't do anything but just post quotes, and we put the video up once a month. And I think it was like 9 years later, it was like 15 million views or something. And it was truly what I've created, and what's been created through me is a grassroots organic audience where it's just based on the content I put out. I have a very intimate connection with the universe, ascended masters. I meet with archangels on a regular basis, and I'm a part of some very interesting high-level projects involving raising the consciousness of the planet. But it was important for me just to put it out based on the content and the energy, and just let people receive what it was providing them. I was at a point in my life where I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what to do or where to go. And I'm just going to give. I'm just going to give and put out what's coming through me, and what will be, will be. That life will support me or it won't support me. It has supported me wonderfully. But I just always have come from a place of service. Put out my message, and let it be received. And from there, this has all happened. And even as I talk to you right now, as successful as I've been and continue to be, my life is still about how can I be of more service? How can I be more philanthropic? How can I raise the stakes of what I'm doing in greater service to people? So for me, everything is about service And my intention is that anything involving advertising is just about spreading the goodwill of service to a greater percentage of the planet.
Thank you for saying it, because this is,
Yeah.
that's my soapbox is,
Yeah.
when I started this agency, it was in a response to not seeing a spiritual angle given to particularly
Right.
the realm of Facebook ads and Instagram ads. And so you're singing my song, and thank you for that.
You're
And
welcome.
one question I was going to ask you, which you've already answered, is sort of like, I know so many very beautiful spiritual beings on this planet who still resist, or maybe up until this point have resisted, being online and doing the virtual piece, or marketing. It's the marketing piece and the business side of things and the sales, and how much that just really closes them up. And so I'm super curious if you've got anything else to add about how you moved through that process of coming from a place of service and channeling and spirit to reconcile that. Or maybe you didn't even have to have a reconciliation. Maybe it was natural.
Well, I've always had a very naturally for me, I've always had a very high level of confidence. And when I was younger, having the level of confidence I have now back then was a little interesting, around other kids my age, because they were like, how could you be so certain? And I was very confident about certain things. Very confident about my abilities. My parents were very much fans of mine, which were amazing my whole life. My parents were fans of mine before I discovered any talents whatsoever. They were amazing, truly, in their belief of me. And when I started doing the work that I did, so the intention for the work I do is there is such a passion and a force of spirit working through me. I can't help but let the world know what's pouring through me, right? Like someone standing in the park just prophesizing the word of God. Like, this is my way of doing it. And when we talk about charging money for our abilities, what we're basically saying to people is, here's something that can help you. And this is of such great value. Let's exchange energy. I'll put the energy to provide this. And by people providing money, whether it's through an energy exchange, wherever you live, or whatever the monetary system is in the world you inhabit, the intention is someone says, what you have to offer is of such a value, I will give something of myself. So to create a bigger space for what you're giving to be received by me. And so early in my career, there are a few times where people would, how could you charge money for what you do? And it really isn't about money. It's about, I deserve, and everyone deserves to be supported for the support that we offer. And I think for a lot of people, it's a lack of belief in themselves, or on a deeper level, it's a lack of belief that Spirit has actually chosen us for this big mission. And when we know we have been divinely appointed by Spirit to bring this through for the world, and I'm not the only one, absolutely, but I just do the most with the space I've been given, it is absolutely essential to say, what I am providing you from Spirit is of such a value that you deserve to carve a space in your reality to have a bigger space for this to be received. And when we stand for that value, people begin to respect that value, and then they can actually receive what you give instead of just consider it. And I think it goes beyond money and scarcity consciousness and dollars and cents. It's not about money. It's about the value we place on the service we provide. And if we want people to really be forever changed and transformed by what we're offering, we have to, on a certain level, take ourselves a little seriously. We have to have a certain level of professionalism. We have to say, Spirit has chosen me for this mission, so I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to let myself be seen and received. That will be a mixture of response, or it may be an overwhelming positive response. Who knows? But I'm going to serve the will of that.
Speaking about money as an energetic exchange, which is how I love to think about and speak about money. Whenever I pay somebody, I try to keep a really strong habit of seeing it as my token of gratitude and appreciation, even my electricity bill. So all of it, it's all an energetic exchange. How and I've never asked this question before, so it might not, or I might not articulate it perfectly, but
Sure.
given we're being forced to, in some ways, create a different economy. We've been working towards it for a while, I think, but
Yeah.
given sort of this crisis that we're in right now,
Mm-hmm.
in
Yeah.
2020, May 1st, 2020, as of today,
Yeah.
this current crisis that we're in, how do you see the economy, and maybe this is way too big of a question, but I think that you can
Yeah.
handle it, shifting in this way, thinking of money as an energy exchange, seeing all these people that now have furloughed jobs or who don't have the
Mm.
work that they had before. It's hard. It's a hard thing to go through, but there's also an opportunity here to
Yeah.
create a new paradigm.
Well, there really is. And I think that when we see when the country or the world is in a recession, or when there's a crisis like this, it really brings things back to a community level where if people are without the resources of a monetary system like dollars and cents, then it becomes a matter of, hey, I have these abilities. Hey, I have these seeds to farm with. What do you say? I provide you some consciousness and I open up your chakras and activate your light body. And when the harvest is there, I'll take a few carrots and broccoli. And it's just a matter of a flow of giving and receiving, right? We say dollars and cents because that's the world we've been raised in. I've been raised in a world where dollars and cents exist. We also live in a world where this COVID-19 thing has happened. The world has been plunged into an ascension timeline rather quickly. I do congratulate, and I say this positively, it is the light workers of the world that has accelerated the world into this expansion of consciousness. And I find it always interesting that when something of a crisis exists, you turn on the news and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, hey, a $5.8 trillion stimulus package just got approved and everyone gets like $1,200 or whatever it is. And I just sit there scratching my head going, well, where was that 3 weeks ago? Because people have been needing money for a long time. There's been a very small percentage of people having a lot of money, and there's been a large amount of people having very little money. And I just think that when you have a printing machine that can just print rectangles, it all comes to, we all see what we see, and we all sense that it kind of feels like we're living in a big improv game. So there's going to be a point in history where the communities come together as a collective community and say, if this is an improv game, everyone should have infinite rectangles. And the people that say that wouldn't work are the people that are trying to keep a large amount of money for a small amount of people. So I think that, and I'm not an economist, I'm not a politician, I'm a spiritual teacher. I just think that when we talk about trading goods and services, if we're going to live in a world where silver coins and green rectangles is the way in which we trade goods and services, there's no reason why everyone can't have rectangles and circles and live the life that they desire. I mean, it just comes down to an expansion of consciousness, which allows more people to come together to demand a system that works for many instead of a system that benefits a few. Very simple.
Rectangles and circles for all.
For all rectangles. You get a rectangle. I get a rectangle. Everyone gets rectangles. Like, if you think about it outside of this really warped political viewpoint, and you say, what would happen if everyone had infinite rectangles? Do you know what would happen? We'd all live happily ever after. It's very simple, right? It's a very interesting, head scratching predicament. And unfortunately, it affects so many people. And yet on the most inconceivably positive side of things, you look at a third world country where people don't have a lot of resources, but they have community, they have family, and you look into their eyes and you see the brightest light you've ever seen in the world. So the good news is, whether you have or don't have on whatever level, it tends to force your consciousness into an expansion that is way beyond the conversation of dollars and cents. And of course, as we all learn to rely on the power of our consciousness, we are able to draw to us exactly what we need, no matter the imaginary financial, landscape of the world. So again, the solution is an awakening of consciousness that allows us to start creating a more community-based reality for the entire world.
Hell yeah, bring it on.
Yeah.
So you show up so beautifully for your people on a daily basis, all the time.
Yes. Yes.
What rituals and routines do you employ to help you show up aligned and ready to serve?
Oh, I love that. Well, I do meditate a lot. When I'm not serving my audience in the expansion of consciousness, because there's two sides of all of us. There's two sides of me for sure. There's the light worker side of me, and then there's the artist side of me. And the artist side of me writes poetry. I write songs. I cook a lot. I invent recipes. A cookbook will be coming soon and some cooking videos. So I'm a very creative being. So when I'm not serving the world and when downloads of new teachings aren't pouring through, which they do every day, I'm in my own artistic, creative process, always creating, always imagining, always expanding. And also in my own personal practice, meditation, breath work, sending prayers to humanity countless times every single day. In fact, one of my practices is, because, I don't watch the news a lot, but I do, especially in today's days, want to know what the headlines are, want to see where things are. I watch the news, and anytime I see anything, I anchor the opposite vibration. So if I see coronavirus numbers, I intend, thank God, coronavirus has been healed and cleared. If I see the face of an assailant on the news, I anchor salvation, forgiveness for that being to be transformed so no one can be hurt again. If I see a victim, may they be healed instantaneously. And wherever I go in the world, people I pass by, I'm sending blessings to. So for me, the active blessing spree that I live on is a part of the cultivation of my ever-expanding consciousness. And when I'm not serving the world, my ability to balance this consciousness with artistic expression is paramount. And of course, much time spent in silence. And that's my life.
That sounds like a brilliant cookbook right there.
Yeah.
I really like Blessing Spree.
Blessing spree.
Yeah.
Blessing spree.
Will you please
That's what I
name
do.
one of your dishes Blessing Spree?
Blessing spree. This dish is called blessing spree. You're welcome. You are welcome. You're welcome.
What kind of people resonate with you the most?
I think people that are I think the people that really resonate with me are people that have been on a spiritual path for a little bit, have tasted some of the processes and paths. And maybe they're confused that what processes they were taught didn't quite give them the results promised. And instead of, maybe there's been time spent blaming themselves for doing it wrong. But I think really the people that are saying, look, I've followed the steps and I'm at my wit's end and I want to know it's true. I want to know it's real and I want to know what works. People that are energetically sensitive, that can't decipher the difference between other people's energies and theirs. I think just people who are incredibly loving and psychically sensitive, but often lack the assertive confidence to know that they are an agent of change and they are an expression of light. And really, I find myself being the kind of light worker that helps to activate and amplify the power of other light workers. And I really have embraced that type of role. And of course, there are people that are just beginning their journey that find my videos and just kind of fall into that trajectory. But really the people, I think, that are ready to really put all the pieces together, do the real work, and are ready to fully awaken tend to be the ones that find my material. And I've really embraced that. I was joking with someone the other day about the different ways you look at things, and there's like the Taylor Swifts of the world, and then there's the Bob Dylans, and I kind of find myself more in that, like I'm like a Bob Dylan or a Cat Stevens. I'm just doing my thing, and for those that are meant to receive what I put out, they receive it. And I think I'm 43. And it's taken me some time to really kind of just settle into myself. And I find myself just being very satisfied with the quality of my work. And for me, that's how I actually define abundance. the abundance of my life, the universe takes care of me. That's the universe. For me, abundance is the quality of work I stand behind and the quality of my transmission and the quality of how I serve my audience. And when times like these happen and everything is flipped upside down, someone like me steps to the forefront as like a first responder. And I'm going to be there with people every step of the way because I live for this. I live and thrive to help assist in the evolution of consciousness. And so while my heart goes out to everyone for the lives that have been lost, the businesses that have been closed, and these really rather tragic things, my job is to serve the will of the universe until I am escorted into the next level. And it's truly my greatest honor.
Mm. Well, I can attest to the offerings and products that you have for sure.
Thank you.
How do you stay in alignment with your people, with your customers and your clients? How do you make sure that what you're offering continues to resonate with them, especially when you've got these like wildly turbulent times?
Yeah, well, I think we have to just tune into the experience people have. We have to look at the environment in which we live in, the sign of the times. We have to really be able to authentically see ourselves from an objective perspective. We have to basically say, okay, what is going to be really helpful at this time? What's really helpful? The things I offer are not because a publisher comes to me and says, Matt, we need a new hot product from you. I don't do that. I've had various people approach me and say, hey, Matt, we could use another one of your, you know what I mean? Like, why don't you get in the studio and do a little repeat after me and we'll put a little bow on that. And I appreciate that because I love that people come to me for content. But I only put out what I find to be useful and what I intuitively feel will be useful in the lives of other people. I'm not just going to be someone that puts out another hypothetically CD just for a seat, like, hey, here's another album, right? My record label says I need to put out another one. Here you go. I only put out what totally moves me on a molecular level. And when something pours in and I go, the world needs this right now, that's how I know. And there are times where it's like, yeah, I'm going to take a little break and I'm going to just kind of integrate and rest, because if it's not pouring in like a revelation, like a tidal wave, I have no interest in putting it out because, everything I do has usefulness, of course. But if I put something out there, I'm going to have to be excited about it. And so truly what only excites me is something that moves me on like an atomic level, right? Where I receive a download of teachings and processes and it shifts the chemistry of my body. It literally changes the structure of your being. That's what I like to put out, And so for me, it's just about being true to what is exciting and pours through me and not putting things out there because someone in a position says we need more things from you, but really just putting it out because the artist in me knows this is the next expression of my body of work.
So how can people find you?
My goodness. Well,
it's pretty easy. This is just my standard question. Throw Matt Kahn in your search engine.
Matt Kahn, your search engine. But if you go to mattkahn.org, MATTKAHN.org, sign up for my free newsletter. I send out a free newsletter every Sunday with teachings. And, on the website, there's also a collection of our YouTube videos. You can search me on YouTube, find hundreds of free videos. We put out a free video every month. And on the website, it will eventually have dates of when we can organize publicly or online, depending on the where the world goes. But my website is always the best way to reach me. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm the only one that posts on my social media. I have this thing where every comment that is put on my social media, I like. And every time I send a like, I'm literally sending healing energy to that person. So it's just another way for me to be of service to people on a daily basis. And again, it's just such an honor to be able to serve. For me, every single day, I wake up every day and I feel so fortunate that I have the ability to have what I give be received. And I'm always grateful for that. And it's literally one of my greatest joys.
Thank you so much, Matt Kahn.
You're welcome.
We love you.
I love you.
Thank you so much for listening, everyone. And I hope this has been as much of a gift to you as it has been to me. And we'll see you next week.